Hello all, welcome to Tutlings. In this tutorial, we will see how to work with Google Cloud Storage when you are working on ASP.NET Core version 6 web application. So without further ado, let's get started. So in order for us to work with Google Cloud Storage, we have to create one storage on our Google Cloud platform. So here I am on googlecloud.com, cloud.google.com, and if I go to console, I'll go ahead and create a new project. The project name will be something like Titlings or something like ASP Core Demo, right? So I'll choose the trial billing account and click on create. So once the project is created, a project is like a logical segregation of all your application specific resources, right? So let's select the project that is just created, ASP Core Demo. And the first thing we are going to do is to create a storage. So here I'm on the storage where I have landed on buckets menu, right? I'll go ahead and create a bucket, which will be naming it as demo get ASP. Let's see. Okay. And I want this to be just available in single region just for the demonstration purposes. Click on continue. I'll go with the standard one. I'll just go with all the default uh, access controls. And yeah, I don't want to have any object versioning or retention policy. I'll just go ahead and click on create. So public access will be prevented. Enforce public access prevention on this bucket. Yes, I do want to prevent public access on this bucket so that I can prevent hackers or attackers to access my bucket and its contents. But once this bucket is created, let's see. All right, so this has been created. The next thing is we are going to add a service account which can access this bucket, such as like creating objects inside this, uploading objects onto this bucket, or deleting objects from the bucket, and so on. Right. So for that, what you have to do is go to service account or go to IAM page. Right. So IAM page. Okay, it has loaded, and click on service accounts. I don't have any service account, so I'll go ahead and create a service account. I'll name it as ASP.NET Core service account, right? So the ID will be the same, and this is what the email address looks like. And I'll just go ahead and create and continue. This is a very important step, right? So in order for this service account to access any resource within this project, all you have to do is grant that role. This is like enforcing this particular service account, uh, the list of resources it can access, this account can access. So you can go ahead and choose owner such that full access to most of the Google resources, right? So will be provided. But yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. But if at all you are just creating a service account just to enable access on the storage and the buckets, right? So what you can do is go ahead and search for cloud storage, right? So, and cloud storage, it's not storage admin. You have to choose storage object admin, which is this one, such that when you have enforced this role, storage object admin, you will be able to have full control of GCS objects, which is in fact Google Cloud Storage objects, right? So I'll go ahead and continue and leave this as is and click on done, right? So once the service account has been created, right? So we need to obtain the key so that with that key, we will our application which actually tries to upload or deletes the file objects from the bucket uh, can establish authentication with that key, right? So for that, all we have to do is go to the IAM, right? So click on this edit for the service account that we have just created. Already we have added the role. So yeah, let's go to the service account back again and click on this. And in the keys section, all you have to do is just click on add a key and create a new key. And it is preferred to have JSON type. So I'll go ahead and click on create. Right. So this is the JSON file that I have just downloaded, which has the credentials or the privilege to access this particular uh, resources that this particular service account has. Right. So I'll just go ahead and make a note of it. All right. So the next thing is we will create a new Visual Studio project, right? So for that, we have to open Visual Studio 2022, right? Necessarily, it's not necessary that you have to launch 2022 version of Visual Studio. You can also work with 2019, but I haven't tried this on 2019. So more or less the steps are similar. So I'll go ahead and create a new project, right? So I'll do a project which is like ASP.NET Core Web Application with model view and controller, right? So let's name it what we can say um, Animal Kingdom. Okay. And I am going to place a solution on project in the same directory and I click on next. So the framework is .NET 6, which is the latest and long-term support, right? So I'm not choosing any authentication type for the time being. Uh, I'm going to enable the HTTPS and also Docker support. And if at all I'm going to enable this, I'll be prompted with two options, which is like Windows or Linux. I'll go ahead and select the Linux as a Docker operating system. And to leverage the latest C Sharp 10 versions, I'll go ahead and uncheck this. If you choose this, you will have namespaces and the classes each and everywhere. For example, in Program.cs, right? So I'll go ahead and leave that so that I can use top level statements and click on create. So this will create a new project, which is Animal Kingdom. All right, the first thing we need to do is open the app settings and we'll be adding few things here. The first one is connection strings. And yeah, here I have added the connection string for the Postgres database. And if you don't know how to install Postgres, you can always uh, go through my video. The video is available here on my official YouTube channel, Tutlings, right? So it will help you to install PostgreSQL database server and also with pgadmin on your Windows operating system, which is 11 or also on 10. both are applicable if you go through this video, and you don't need to unnecessarily have admin rights in order to install Postgres. And how you can install is something that is already covered in this video, right? I'll leave the description to this. I'll leave the link to this video in my video's description. All right. So back to our Visual Studio. So back to our Visual Studio. So we have updated the connection string, and let's add two more config entries here, right? So the first config entry is GCP storage authentication authorization file, which is the path to the JSON file we just have downloaded, right? So I'll just do one thing. I'll just update the development settings here, right? And I'll update the path to the JSON file. So this is for my development purposes. The location is here. Similarly, it's here. And for the bucket name will be the name that we have just given when creating the bucket. And the name of the bucket is, let's go to Google Cloud Storage. Here is the name of the bucket. And back again to Visual Studio, and we'll update the bucket name here. All right, so let's close this. And I have already spun up the Postgres database server. It's running in the background, as you can see here, right? So the next thing that we are supposed to do is, as we have added this config entries, let's represent this in the form of C# classes. And for that, all we need to do is let's add, oops, let's cancel the build. Let's add a directory named details and config options. So you can add this file anywhere you want, but I just tend to add the class here, config options here, under this part, so that I can have a very structured way of organizing the utilities that are necessary for this project, right? So in order to reflect these two config entries, I will add these two properties, and I load this GCS config options in my services. So right below this add controllers with views, I'll go ahead and add builder.services.configure and the file is GCS config options, and it will take builder.configuration. Right, so we are loading the configuration with the values that are present in the application appsettings.json into this object. All right, so the next thing is let's deal with some Nuget packages that this project has already loaded with, right? So the first thing is um, let's manage Nuget packages. We don't have any Nuget package, so I'll just go ahead and add the Google Cloud Storage V1 app. You will see two versions with slightly different names. this one is also storage, but this is not the recommended package. So do not install this. Uh, so this is the official recommended Google Cloud client library to access the Google Cloud storage API. So I'll go ahead and install this version 4.10, which is compatible with the ASP.NET Core 6, right? So all right, this has been installed. And the next thing is we will create a cloud storage service that actually interacts with the bucket that we have just spun up in our cloud console, right? So for that, all we have to do is let's go ahead and create a directory, name the services, or you can let's call it services, and we'll go ahead and create a C# file. It's a class file named cloud storage service, right? So this cloud storage service will have an interface, and our cloud storage service class will implement this interface. All right. So before I go ahead and implement this, I'll also add a constructor, right? So this constructor actually depends on the options class, cloud options class that we have just added in GCS config options class that we have just added here in utils config options, right? So I options, let's import the usings for this, and GCS config options, right? So it will be named as options, and I would like to add some logging here, right? So an instance of cloud storage service, right? So let's call it logger, right? So I'll go ahead and initialize these fields for this, and also the field for logger, right? So I tend to give the private fields to start with underscore, and this will be directly the options instead of I options type. So value would give me that uh, instance of GCS config options, right? So what else? Uh, we don't need that either. Okay, so the next thing is I'll go ahead and let's see, we build this and it builds successfully and fine. Okay, so once we have this constructor initialized with okay, there is some options dot value. I options is uh, okay. So this is the underscore that is causing the error. So let's build this. The next thing we are going to do is try to read uh, the credentials that we have in the JSON, right? So the basic syntax for that is we have the JSON file, and what we are supposed to do is let's initialize some variable Google credential, right? So and Google credential dot from file, right? And the file is available to us from the options and the storage auth file, right? So this is something that the Google credential can be passed from the file, and we have the instance of this credential all across this singleton. Right, so I'll go ahead and generate a read-only field for this. Right, so it is always better to fall back to other form of uh, retrieving the credential. Right, so as I'm on the development environment, I'll read it from the file. If I'm on the production, I'll read it from the secrets, and the corresponding code for that will be something like this, right? So the ASP.NET Core environment variable, we are setting it to production in deployment scenarios. And if at all it's a deployment of type production, then I'm reading it directly from the JSONs, which is actually this JSON file will be stored to secrets, and on my local, I'll be reading it from the file which I have configured to read it from this path, right? So there is one last thing. Let's ensure that, okay, this is ensured that the file is correct. All right. So the next thing is, let's move back to our this thing. All right. So let's wrap this inside our try catch, and it will finally appear like this, right? So I'm logging if at all there are any errors connecting or reading the credentials from the apps, right? So the next thing is let's implement this upload file async method, right? So the first thing is we have to read this file upload, which is of the form IForm file, and the file name that needs to be saved. This is an optional argument, though you can just leave it this, but I'm just having this as an extra argument to have a unique file name that is being generated every time I save a file. Right. So without typing much of the code, I'll just go ahead and reflect the code here. Right. So there are a few things that we need to understand. The first thing is, okay, let's okay, so this has to be an async, right? So similarly, for other that's also are async in nature, right? So uh, we are logging the information right before uploading, and we are casting the file's contents to a memory stream, right? So that needs to be uploaded to our Google Cloud Storage bucket. And once we have the file that needs to be uploaded, copied to this memory stream, we are actually getting an instance of the storage client, right? So we are creating the storage client, and then we are uploading the object in an asynchronous manner and awaiting while it gets uploaded. And the upload object async takes two arguments. The first one is the bucket, name of the bucket to which this file that is being asked to upload will be stored to, and the file name that needs to be given once the upload happens, and the file's content type, right, which we can easily obtain from the file to upload content type, and the file itself, the blob of the memory stream of the file itself as a so four arguments. This is optional. You can just leave it as null if you don't have any. This is something that you need to give it as an identifier to find your file on the Google Cloud Storage, right? So once the upload succeeds, we are logging back again, uploaded file, right? So and we are returning the media link, right? So the URL for this. And in case of any exceptions, we are modifying, like logging the exception to the logger, right? So the next thing that we are supposed to look at is deleting a file, right? So we also have a deleting file, right? So I'll just go ahead and uh, implement this here, right? What we are doing here is we are capturing the file that needs to be deleted. This file name is something that is similar to what we have saved as, right? The file name, right? So that is something that we need to obtain, and we will be saving that in our entity frameworks model uh, in just a few minutes after the demonstration, right? So when we are trying to delete, we are going to send that same file name, which we have saved it as, right? So once we send that, we'll actually gain access to the storage client and perform the delete object async and await for this operation to complete. And delete object async again takes two arguments. The first one is the bucket name, and the second is the file name that needs to be deleted, right? So in case of success, we just log information. In case of failure, we log error. And finally, uh, the get signed URL async, right? So you can ask like while uploading, once upload success, you are getting the access to the media link. But this link have challenges accessing, though the service account has the access like object storage admin, right? So there are various uh, restrictions when it comes to obtaining the blob, uh, right? So there are various ways, but one of the preferred and most secure way is retrieving the object through its signed URL, right? So here is the code for that, right? So you have the Google credential. In order, it's retrieving the signed URL is a way to different approach rather than creating a storage client. You actually have to um, what we say like get the instance of the URL signer from service account credential, and then you perform the sign the action on the file that you are trying to obtain the access or the URL to, right? So the steps goes like, as you have the instance to Google credential, which is actually read from that JSON file, and you have a cast of that file to service account credential, right? So this service account credential will be sent as an argument to the URL signers from service account credential, right? So, and it will give you the instance of URL signer on which you can perform the asynchronous sign operation on the file that you want to obtain the signed URL for, right? So sign async is a method that actually takes three arguments. The first one is the bucket that you want to uh, access the file from and the file name. And the last one is for how many minutes, hours, or seconds that you want to uh, make this signed URL valid, right? So I want to keep this access to the URL once it is generated. Uh, the validity is set as 30 minutes. You can go ahead and change it to from hours or something of that sort, but I just leave this as 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, this URL will get expired and this is no longer valid, right? So it will actually provides the limited permission in amount of the minutes or the time that you define here on a requested resource, which makes your application so secure and robust, right? So this is the basic cloud storage service that you can define. It has like upload file, delete file, and also like get signed URL for the file that you are trying to access, right? So as we have created this service, let's go ahead and register this singleton in builder services, right? So all we have to do is builder.services dot add singleton, right? So and it's the iCloud service, cloud storage service with an instance of cloud storage service. All right. So we have the initial setup ready. Right. So what we'll do is like go ahead and start implementing our application, which is a MVC based application that uses the ASP.NET Core Entity Framework version 6 and Razor views as the views. Right. So our model will be in the animal kingdom will be a simple animal class. Right. So it will be animal.cs and it will have few properties. And this is actually the representation of entity in the database also. Right. So in database, we don't want to actually save the file, which is like photo of the animal, right? So we are marking it as not mapped. Same is the case with a signed URL, which actually has expiry, and it doesn't make sense for us to actually save it in our database. And it's up to your design decision how you want to store it. And we actually let's look at this animal class. It has an automatically generated ID. Entity framework treats this ID property as key and automatically increments by one when it sees integer. Right? Name will be the name of the animal, age will be the age of the animal, photo will be the photo of the animal, which is of type IFormFile. And in order for you to upload files, it has to be a IFormFile, and it is optional, which is indicated by the question mark. Right? So, and the saved URL is something that we are actually saving in our entity framework and also in which in turn saves it to the database of animals table, right? So we are not saving the signed URL as I mentioned just now, as it keeps on expiring, but we will save the media link, which is actually uh, saved in this property. And saved file name is something that we actually identify the blob or the file in our bucket, right? So in order to perform such as delete and retrieve signed URL, saved file name will be used, right? So this is the basic model in our list of model view controller uh, approach of implementing this application. Let's add a controller, and it will be of type MVC controller with views using entity framework 6. And the model will be the animals class, which is the animal model. And as we don't have any data context, that's why the migration failed. And we'll create a new data context, which will be this animal kingdom dot data dot animal kingdom context. And we will be generating views and reference the script libraries if at all there are any, and also use a layout page. Right. Let's use this layout page, which is like it will be in shared layout. Right. So let's go ahead and add this controller that will actually add NuGet packages that are necessary to interact with the database that are related to entity framework core. So it is scaffolding, which means it is generating the scaffolding code that actually builds the views for adding a animal, right? So if you just look at this, creating an animal view, deleting an animal view, details for an animal, editing an animal, and list of animals in the index, right? So, and also it has created a new controller, which is animals controller that actually talks to the animal model and sends those model to the view which are present in the animals folder, right? So that's the model view controller approach of implementing ASP.NET Core and DC applications. So let's close this. We have to do some sort of cleanups here. The first thing is with regards to packages. As our application will be using uh, PostgreSQL as a database, so we'll go ahead and delete the SQL server. And the next thing is we'll go to manage packages. And in order to talk to the Postgres database server, we have to use NpgSQL, right? And the package name is npgsql.entityframeworkcode.postgresql, right? So the latest version is 607. You can look at the dependencies, right? So entity framework, core 6, and all those things. So I'll go ahead and install this. And this has been installed. Um, let's wait for this to refresh. Yeah, this has been installed. Let's close this. And here in the program.cs, instead of SQL Server, we have to use NpgSQL. And the connection string is this. So what we'd rather do is go ahead and update the connection string as this. Okay, already it has added. I'll just update this one here and delete the duplicate entry here. And also the same is the case in here. All right. So now it's time for us to at least try and see the migration succeed. Let's build before we can add migrations. All right. So migration init. So it will now create a migrations directory here. As you can see, the migrations directory will have the SQL related uh, representation of tables or any SQL schema in the form of C# classes. That actually is a syntax that represents the entity framework code, Fluent API form of representation, right? So you don't have to really worry much about this because it's auto-generated code. And as long as you don't know what you're doing, right? So you're good to go. And before we proceed, uh, the first thing that we are supposed to do is, uh, as we have this model in our database, in our entity framework, we have to update this and reflect this model in our database, right? So for that, um, I'll open the pgadmin4, right? So let me refresh. I can see 6 databases here, and the database name, let's say we want to give this database as any animal kingdom DB, right? So this will be the name of the database. And we don't have a database that is named as animal kingdom, right? So once we update the database, it will get generated and it will show up here, right? So for that, we will apply the migrations. We have applied the migrations already. Now we will update update database command. So which actually goes ahead and runs the SQL script that creates a database and the necessary tables inside our database, right? So let's refresh. Now you see the 7 databases. Yeah, animal kingdom. All right. Let's look at the schemas. Let's look at the tables. Here we go. We have our animal table with the columns, right? So let's make a comparison with our model that we have and in our database, right? So we have an ID, we have a name field, we have an age. It's not mapped for photo, so it's not showing up here. And saved URL is showing up here, and saved file name is showing up here, and signed URL is not mapped, hence it's not added as a column in our table. All right, so we have set up with the model and also with the view and the controller. All we have to do is enable our MVC application to upload the files such that it gets captured in this particular field and they get saved back to our Google Cloud Storage bucket. All right. So let's begin our journey. Right. So before we begin, we will update the shared layout. Right. So if we start this application in normal mode, not in Docker container. So let's see how it goes. It's a simple bare bones application right now with yeah. So here we see the home page and the privacy page and animal kingdom. So our animals view can be accessed from slash animals, I believe, because it's the plural of the model. Yeah, exactly. Right. So let's add this route to this home page, and let's ease up our life going forward. So for that, all we have to do is go to views, shared layout, right? So this has a navigation link, right? So what I'll do is before privacy, I'll add link to this, and the controller is animals, which is actually identified by animals controller, excluding the name controller in the file, right? So that's what how you identify. And the action is specifying that it has to default to the index action, which is the index, right? So you will be presented with a view, which is actually the view that shows the list of animals. Here is the animals, and the view corresponding to this index is the name of the view itself, right? Index, right? So it will show the list of views. All right. So that's set up, and what we'll do is like let's just see we have like name, age, saved URL. Okay, we'll also do one last thing, right? So we'll go ahead and add. Let's stop this application, and in our root directory, we'll add images directory, and we'll add a new file, right? So I'll go ahead and otherwise I'll add it directly from the. Let me open it in Explorer, and I'll add a new image here, right? So this is the image, and what we'll do is set its content, build action to content, and in our home page, which is the home index, we'll update our home in such a way that it refers to the image that we have just added in our images directly of webroot. So let's run this application and see how our homepage looks like. All right, so this is pretty good, and this page is responsive also, right? So this is very nice. All right. So we also see that animals link got added to the navigation and create animals. As we see, it has these fields, but we don't see the option to upload file. Let's go ahead and work towards that. So first thing we need to do is actually to uh, update the view, right? So For that, we'll go ahead and open the create CSHTML of animals. Um, Before we proceed, we have to enable uploading files. The main form is this. So in order for us to enable uploading file, we have to add n type attribute that actually specifies the value as multi-part form data, right? That's the first step. And we also need to add um, the photo, which is like, let's do this. All right. Let's add it after saved URL, but we don't need saved URL, right? So let's make it hidden and type is hidden. And also same with the file, saved file name. And we also mark it as type hidden, right? So we'll add this after this. Anyway, these are hidden and we are done. In order for us to handle this, right, file upload, we have to go ahead and make some changes to our animals controller. We'll start off with the constructor, right? So we have to enable this constructor to actually talk to the cloud storage service that we have just created here in services directory, and also enabled it to be available to us as a singleton instance, right? So I'll go ahead and add that service and I'll create a field that creates me a read-only field. I'll just name it to start with underscore. That way I can just identify it's a class level or controller level field. And what else, right? So we are supposed to allow the create animal form to be able to upload the photos, right? From the UI, we have enabled that. And from the controller action, which actually um, allows the like processes the create animal, we have to also add an extra field here, which is like photo. This photo is the file that actually represents the model's property animal photo, right? So that's the property that we need to add. And what we are supposed to do now is, um, so we have to ensure that the IFormFile property uh, is added, which is of the property name photo. And what else we can do? So we have to upload the file even before we save the model to the database, right? So for that, what we have to do is just uh, add this code, right? So once we have enabled this option to read the photo that is coming in to this controller from the UI, we check whether it's null or not. If it's not null, which means the file has been uploaded, file has been sent as a request to upload, then we go ahead and process the upload, right? So we see that generate file name to save is the method uh, that we will be creating in order to generate unique names, right? So for that, um, what we'll do is have this functionality, right? So what this function does is like it will just extract the file name and the extension. And for the file name, it appends the date time now in this format and appends the extension back again, right? So that way you will be able to identify uniquely the file if at all there are any duplicate files. So this method will save us from identifying or adding duplicate file names, which will be useful when you are about to delete a file. You actually have to send the file uh, that you want to delete, right? So that's a benefit that you can have with this. And back again to our create view, right? So we are checking whether the incoming request has a file blob or not, which is photo. And if it is there, we are first generating what file name that we need to give it. So we have that, and we have uh, generated a file name that needs to be saved. And finally, we are actually calling the method exposed by the cloud storage service, which is upload file async. And it takes two arguments as we have defined, right? So the first one is file to upload of type file form file, and the second one is the file name itself, right? So it also returns the media URL, right? As we have looked at the actual implementation, it is returning the media link after successful upload, right? So it is actually being saved into the saved URL property of our animal model, which gets saved into our database. So that's what we are doing it in our create functionality. So with that in place, let's build this project. This looks so good. And uh, let's run this application. Meanwhile, this gets started. We can navigate to our bucket, which is demo bucket, right? So, and see, ensure that there are no objects at this time, right? So we don't have any objects. So what I'll do is just navigate to animals and create a new one, right? So create a new, and the name will be lion. Age is, let's say it is 5 years old, and let's go ahead and add this lion, and let's add some breakpoint just to see if things are going smooth, right? So that's how we can have some sort of confidence in how this flow occurs, right? So model state is valid, yes, and we are checking whether the photo blob is available. Yeah, it's available. Then what we it will do is this is a file name that is incoming, and generate file name will actually generate the file name like this, which is the date time format in UTC in this format, right? And what it will do once it has a file name is it will pass the file name along with the IFormFile object, right? Let's go ahead and dig deeper into this. And as this service has been registered as a singleton instance, it will have always the instance of this uh, cloud storage service. And inside this, we have the file upload and memory stream. We are initializing and we are pushing the file iForm file to the memory stream. And this memory stream will get uploaded to the Google Cloud Storage, right? So we are getting the instance of storage client, right? So we are uploading the object asynchronously to the storage bucket named demo bucket ASP. We are saying that this file name should be this, and the content type is actually the content type that we have uploaded available from iForm file, and the memory stream that we have just casted our iForm file to, right? So let's wait for this to upload asynchronously. All right, it has been successfully uploaded, right? So we are finally logging it here. And we can also see the logs here, right? So uploaded file too. All right, so once it is uploaded, we will have the media link, right? So if you look at this, let's copy this, and I'll just hit continue. And this is the URL. Anyway, I have bound this, right? So you won't be able to access this, right? So even though you use it in your application, which the application has credentials to, uh, in the form of JSON file that you have loaded when you are creating this client, right? Uh, you won't be able to access this because this particular service account does not have access to retrieve this in this form. So that's why we have to go ahead and rely on signed URL approach, right? Which we have just already discussed. This looks good. So let's look at our bucket, which is out there on Google Cloud Storage also, right? So here, let's refresh this, and we should be seeing the new file that we have just uploaded. All right, this is a very major breakthrough, and let's go ahead quickly with uh, the details view, right? So for details view, all we have to do is go to the detail view, and we just have to uh, we don't want to show the saved URL in the user interface every time we land on the detail view, right? So let's see how it looks like in its current state, right? So if we just look at the detail, we will see this saved file name and saved URL. So instead of that, let's make this application more intuitive. I'll remove these two, and what I'll do is like add this section, which actually shows me the photo, right? So the thing here is we just need to retrieve the signed URL in order for me to show this photo back again, because signed URL is something that we are not saving in the database. So if you are trying to access it on the model object, it will simply break and show uh, an empty or broken image if you just look at this like this, right? So let's go ahead and implement the logic to actually retrieve the signed URL for the controller animal, right? So in our controller, we need to find the details action, right? So all we are doing is retrieving an animal, and if the animal is not null, then we are returning that animal. But as we have uh, a file also that we need to actually send to the user interface, what I'll do is just go ahead and add the logic to retrieve that file from the Google Cloud Storage, right? So generate signed URL for the animal, right? So this method, what it does is, let me go ahead and implement that. So this method is actually doing the check if at all the saved file name, because we are reading at this instance, right? So if the saved file name that is already something that we have saved in our database is not null, which means during creation or updation in the previous processes, this animal has a file that is already available, right? So if at all that's available, I'll go ahead and query the cloud storage and send that file name, which is the saved file name that I have, and query the bucket to get me the signed URL, right? So that's what it does. And I'll make it async, right, as it is awaiting here. And once I have the signed URL, I'm just binding that URL back to my model's signed URL field, so which will update my model, and that's how I will get access to the signed URL here. So, all right, so this looks good. Let's go ahead and run the application again. And here we are on our home page, and let's navigate to the animals and the details. Voila, right? So now you have access to the image, which is being shown in the details page. Now you will have this signed URL, which is valid for 30 minutes as per the definition that we have given, right? So if you want to just debug, what we can do is like go ahead and put a breakpoint here, and we will come back to the detail view and hit it enter. And behind the scenes, uh, with this animal model that it has obtained based on the ID from the database. Um, it is checking whether the saved file name is available or not. If it's available, it is actually querying the storage service and to get the signed URL. So here it is trying to cast the Google credential, underlying credential as service account credential, and it is getting the URL signer instance from the service account credential that it has casted with the underlying credential, and it is signing the object, which is the file name identified by the file name for 30 minutes, right? So here is the URL, and if you just browse for this URL in any browser of your choice, you will be able to retrieve this file. That's how the signed URLs work. After 30 minutes, this URL goes obsolete, and that's how you will have the secured form of communicating with your objects in your object storage, right? So that's how it is. And we are done with create, we are done with details. Let's go ahead and implement the edit screen. Edit screen is as exactly similar as the create screen. All we have to do is just go ahead and add an end type again, because edit also allows you to I'll just go ahead and stop this. Edit screen also allows you to update a file, right? So we'll just modify this. We don't need shared URL. Similarly, let's do one thing quickly, right? So whatever we have done changes here for the last three fields, we'll go ahead and simply replace it with this, right? So we are allowing the user to upload the photo, and we are saving the URL and shared file names in hidden fields. And back to the controller, which allows you to edit. There are two actions for the controller. One is the moment you land on this controller, which actually retrieves the model from the database and shows it on the UI, right? So that is something that um, is shown here. So in order for you to show the existing image, that's if at all that's already there, what you can do is let's go ahead and add a div, or let's add data div class to div class md call. This will be like two, and again this will be another md medium size column of width 10. The CSS has a total column width of 12, so you just can do that. And what we'll do is, and this, and we will show this only when there is a signed URL available. All right. Otherwise, we are not going to show this completely. So with that in place, let's go ahead and edit our edit controller. So there are two edits. One is like that loads the page based on the ID that is being sent, right? And in that, all we had to do is, so once you find this animal, and once you find that it is available, you just have to generate the signed URL as we did um, previously. And subsequently, it will just try to look for the shared file name, and gets the signed URL, right? So let's go ahead and update the edit post method also, right? So we have just updated this one, and let's actually now add the functionality to replace the file that is being uploaded as a part of updation, right? So our in this functionality, all we have to do is just a minute. Yeah, so here we have the process of actually validating the model, and we are updating the animal, and then we are saving it to the database. But in order to handle our file, right, so all we have to do is first update, replace the photo if at all that's available, right? So we'll go ahead and create a function that actually replaces the photo animal of the incoming one. And we also have to ensure that photo is passed from the user interface page view to the controller, right? So await replace photo, and our replace photo functionality will be implemented like this, and it will be in async. We'll be having this. So what we are doing when we are replacing the photo is first we are checking if at all there is a new photo that is coming in when you are uploading or updating an animal, right? So if that there is a new photo, then only we'll go ahead and perform this replace photo action. And once the photo is there, we'll also check if at all there is a previous uh, photo that is already uploaded for this animal, right? So there, because the photo is an optional field in our model, which is indicated by query question mark here, right? So there can also be the cases where you can create an animal without a photo. But as we have created, let's say, in that case, this will be available, right? So in that case, you are supposed to delete that file and then generate a file name for the new photo that is coming in, and then upload it to the cloud storage. That's what we are doing in the replace process. All right. So with that in place, what we'll do is just run this application and see. Yeah, here is our fancy animal kingdom homepage. Here are the animals, and let's look at the details. And it has hit the breakpoint, so let's remove that. Okay, so this is the image that we have. Let's go back and edit this. All right, this is the image that we have just added. I'm seeing create and save. Let me look at what exactly is happening in this edit view. There is a back to list, and there is okay, I have also added the create button. My bad. All right. All right. So as we have auto reload enabled on file save, it got reflected. So I'm not changing the name or the age. Let's say age can be changed. And because this time it's a different lion, which is this. So I'll just go ahead and save, and let's look at the details. All right. So it got updated successfully, right? So there is one check that we could have seen, which is checking in directly here. Earlier it was 3114 KB, and now it is like Lion 2, which is 260 KB, right? So the file that was uploaded earlier got replaced with the new one. All right. And we also have the signed URL through which we are displaying it in the user interface. All right. This line looks so fierce and very good. Yeah. And the next thing is we have edit implemented, we have details implemented, and finally, all we have to do is delete. We don't want to show this saved URL or saved file name. So let's go ahead and copy the same logic that we have in our details page and reflect it in our delete page. We don't want to have the saved URL or the saved file name. All we need is the photo. And let's see if at all that got. All right. So this is just bound to the user interface and it is showing the broken image with the alt tag as an image saved file name. We need to enable this from the controller so that it can get the signed URL. Right. For that, let's navigate to animals controller and the delete ID. It is supposed to delete is similar to edit, right? So the moment you land on this page, you're supposed to show few uh, fields. One among them is the photo itself. And the moment you perform the delete, uh, this action will get invoked. Delete confirmed will get invoked, which actually deletes the entity. And we also have to take care of deleting this file from the cloud. All right, so let's do that. Um, so before we do, let's modify this so that we can also obtain the animal. So delete is similar to edit, right? So what we'll do is let's look at the edit loading page and we have called this, right? And similarly, we'll go ahead and update the delete. All right. So once we have this, all right, the delete page actually started showing up the photo of the lion. And finally, when you're actually deleting the animal by clicking on delete, all you have to do is to perform few checks, right? So I can just go ahead and mention them. If animal is null, then we are not deleting. And if we found the animal in a database, then it is essential that it has a shared file name. If at all it has the shared file name, it means that it has some file associated with it. So we'll go ahead and delete the file with the saved file name that we have stored in our database. So for that, I'll just go ahead and add a breakpoint just to see it in real time. And even I can just show you what we have in our bucket right now on cloud, right? So we have still this one file and let's go ahead and delete this line. All right. So it has retrieved the lion that we are about to delete from the database. And it has the age 6, ID 1, name, shared file name is not null, which means it has a file associated with it. Shared URL is this. And yeah, let's look at the delete file async. And here we have passed the file name to delete, which is the file name that we can, this is a file name that let me copy this. And in our cloud, this is the file name that I have here, right? So it will be deleted once we perform delete operation. So I'm accessing the client and calling the delete object async by passing the bucket name, which is like demo bucket asp, and the file name, which is the file name of the animal that we want to delete, right? So we are awaiting for this operation to succeed. And yeah, it has been deleted. And let's look at the cloud storage that should have got updated. Let's refresh this. Yeah, it has some update. Yeah, we don't have any rows to display. All right, successfully got deleted, right? So let me go ahead and remove all the breakpoints, and it's time for us to play around with the application, right? So create a new animal. This time, let's say giraffe, and it's just 5 years old. And here we have a fancy giraffe. Go ahead and create. We can do one thing, like you can stop showing this uh, field in our index, which is not making any sense, right? So saved file name also we can just go ahead and delete, or we can try showing photo. Uh, yeah, and for the saved file name, we can rather show the image in our index, and I hope this is animal index. And yeah, so and if at all we are supposed to show the signed URL, we need to actually retrieve the signed URL, right, on the file name. And what we can do to retrieve that is we have to update our animal controller index. Yeah, so we can have quickly something like this in order to load the signed URL for each and every animal, if at all that uh, saved file name exists, right? Similarly, in our index, which actually shows this list, right? We can just downsize the width 80 pixel, and yeah, I think this is good. So we'll go ahead and keep on creating animals. Let's bring back the lion again, our original lion that we had. All right, so we'll go ahead and create a elephant, and this is of like 3 years old. All right, so let's create another animal. Let's see what we have in store. Another animal, or a lion too. Right, so let's say this is of 6 years old, and this one is lion too. All right, so we see that we have successfully implemented file handling uh, that uses ASP.NET Core, Entity Framework 6, and Razor views, um, that has an architecture of MVC, and it actually pushes your files to Google Cloud Storage, right? So let's look at one last time at what's there in the store, Google Cloud Storage now. Right? We should ideally have uh, 4 files now, right? So this is what we have: elephant, giraffe, lion 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and delete one of the lions. Let's say this time we are going to delete lion. Okay, yeah, I'm sure I want to delete this, and go ahead and delete this. And now I have only 3. And let's verify that in our bucket. Let's refresh this. And yeah, all right. One last thing is like our PostgreSQL database, which is animal stable. We currently should be having 3 animals. Let's look at that. All right. So giraffe, lion, and elephant. All right. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, and please do subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to share this with your friends and colleagues, and have a great day.